Hi, come on in. Listen to these words, Discovery class. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Those are the words of King David, verse 6, chapter 23 of the Psalms. We're living in a day when we face a lot of fraud. Have you faced any fraud in your house? Have you found it on your phone if somebody called you and they wanted your money? Maybe the internet? Maybe somebody knocked at your door, or it even came in the email or on the mail. We're living in a day when crooks want to take your money away from you. We've all faced fraud. I want to talk about today in our class something that's not fraud. Are you aware that you're being followed? God left his home on high. And you know why he did? He left it to follow you. He's going to pursue you until you finally find him. And that's what I want to talk about today. Even if it takes all the days of your lives, God's going to find us. Here's another translation of the same verse. Your beauty and love chase after me every day of my life. And when I'm caught, I'm back home in the house of Yahweh for the rest of my life. When you read this verse, you're opening a box of jewels. Each word sparkles. They're all precious gemstones, sure promises, solid foundations. David, who wrote Psalm 23, had a great-great-grandson whose name was the Apostle James, who discovered God this way. God is one with whom there is never the slightest variation or shadow of inconsistency. James wrote that in his first chapter, verse 17, in the Phillips translation. Now, your moods and mine may change. God's doesn't. Your mind may shift. God's doesn't. Your devotion may follow and falter. God's doesn't. Your faith may stumble. God's doesn't. You may betray yourself. God won't betray you. God is sure. And because he's sure, and because you know that he's sure, you can say confidently, surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life. Now, what follows the word surely? There are two words. One is goodness, and the other is mercy. Keep that in mind. If the Lord is the shepherd who leads the flock, goodness and mercy are the two sheepdogs that guard the rear of the sheepfold. Goodness and mercy are twins. You don't see one without the other. Both those sheepdogs work side by side together. I suffer from gout. Do any of you out there in our class suffer from gout? I take a pill for it. It's a prescription drug. It's called allopurinol. Gout is the buildup of uric acid in your joints. I get mainly my gout in my two toes on my left foot. And they become so infected and they turn red, they swell up, and they sting like a wasp bite. I can't even have a light sheet on my toes when I'm sleeping. I have to stick my foot through the end of the bed so it isn't being touched. Now, gout has triggers. Do you know what mine is? Cheese. And I love any kind of cheese. Blue cheese, particularly. My wife calls it my Antichrist. I love that cheese because I guess it's my favorite, and I find it really hard to leave alone. Maybe it's because I'm addicted. Some weeks ago, Mary and I did a funeral for one of our members in a small town way out east of Calgary, outside the town, in the little town of Arrowwood. On the way home, we stopped at a truck stop to have a bite to eat. I was the only car in the parking lot other than trucks, and there were lots of trucks. Well, I ordered a rodeo burger. Class, I'm telling you, it was the best burger I think I ever ate. But do you know why it was so good? On top of the meat, the cook had loaded up loads and loads of blue cheese. Oh, that night it was awful. It was so sore. But you know, class, it was worth it. I'll tell you why. I'm going to take all of you in my class, and we're going to go back out there. And we're going to enjoy a rodeo burger. I've renamed it. I don't call it a rodeo burger. I'm going to call it Goodness and Mercy. Do you know why? Goodness, that's the name of the meat. Mercy, I'm calling that the blue cheese. Even if I suffered, I'm going to go back there. I don't think I'll have another burger, but I want you to come with me and try it. In a couple of months, the blossoms out there in our parking lot just out to the east, they're going to be covered with lovely pink blossoms. The birds are going to be singing again, the snow will be gone, and you can wear just a light sweater. And you're going to come with me, and I'm going to take you away across town, down to the south, and I'm going to take you to that little saloon where it's the truck stop, and I'm going to let you have a rodeo burger. Now, if you don't have to have a burger, but if you want to have soup or salad, whatever, it's just a lovely little restaurant, and I want you to come with me. Because we're going to carpool, you're going to gather out there in the parking lot, and I've got 12 or 15 cars that are going to load us up, and away we go, and we're going to chase each other across town, and then we're going to have a delightful time together, pretending, get this, pretending that the pandemic is past and we're open and we're able to do it. All right, back to the text. Goodness and mercy go together. Not goodness alone. We're all sinners, and we need mercy. And not mercy alone. We're very fragile, and we need goodness to come with it. We need both of them together. Goodness to supply every want, mercy to forgive every sin. Goodness to provide, mercy to pardon. Here's another word in God's jewelry box that comes after goodness and mercy. He will follow you. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow you. Now, don't you find that a bit odd? God, up in heaven, following you? I thought he just sits in his heaven. He's enthroned on high. He rules. He orders. He ordains. It says here that God follows us, and he chases after us, and he tracks us down, and then he wins us over. It says he follows us with goodness and mercy all the days of our life. What I've just described is really the story of your Bible. In chapter 3 of Genesis, that first book, Adam and Eve are hiding. They've sinned. They've covered themselves and their body with some leaves. In chapter 3, verse 9, God comes following them. He says, Adam and Eve, where are you? They said, we're hiding. Well, why are you hiding? Because we have sinned. God said, I'm following you because I'm going to forgive you. Moses, 40 years in the desert. He saw a burning bush. God followed him into the wilderness. Take off your shoes, God said. I have plans for you. You're going back to Egypt and you're going to set my people free. I followed you. Jonah, fugitive, on a boat, running away from God's call. He was supposed to be heading to Nineveh. He went east. Nineveh's east. He was going west over to Spain. There was a huge storm. He was thrust into the sea. God followed him, swallowed him up in a great big fish, and he dumped him off over at Nineveh. And he said, now, do my job for me. The disciples of Jesus, they're in a storm. They see Jesus come walking on the water. He followed them. And he said, don't be afraid. And he calmed the storm. There was a Samaritan woman, alone in life, came to a well. She wanted to draw water. She heard her Messiah talking to her. He heard her Messiah forgive her. He followed her through her pain. John, an apostle, banished to the Isle of Patmos. He looked and he saw the skies opening. God had followed him into exile. And then he said to John, John, write the last book of the Bible. We're going to call it the book of Revelation. It's going to be my promise that I'm coming. And I'm going to come after you. Peter, he had denied his Lord. Remember him? He went back fishing. And then he heard his name being called on shore when Jesus was preparing a breakfast. He followed him. And then he said to Peter, Peter, on this rock, I'm going to build my church. Lazarus was 3 days dead. The tomb was sealed. He heard a voice, Lazarus, come forth. He saw Jesus standing at the mouth of the tomb. He came out and he followed him even unto his death. Has God followed you? You're here this morning in class, and you must be aware that he's here with you. God is constantly at work. He's springing new ideas. He has given us electricity. I'm in a room, it's nice and bright. Outside those walls, behind those windows you're looking at, the temperature is minus 31 degrees. It's the end of February. It's Calgary. It's still wintertime. But our Lord is still giving us new ideas. Hear the words of the final treasure in this jewelry box. All the days of my life, I'm going to dwell in the house of the Lord. Class, something brand new is coming. And it's on your horizon and mine. Not sure what it is, but it's going to be better than anything that you've ever seen before. This week I read an article published in the USA Today newspaper regarding something that is coming, and it's just around the corner. Let me read you the article. It's from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. They call it MIT. It's one of the best engineering schools in the United States. It's on the East Coast, right next to Harvard in Boston. The researchers created a new material that they have just announced that's as strong as steel and it's as light as plastic. It can be easily manufactured in large quantities. It can be used for lightweight coatings on cars, lightweight coatings on phones, or even on buildings. And it can be used as building blocks for massive structures like bridges or even skyscrapers. The material is several times stronger than bulletproof glass. And the amount of force that is needed to break it is twice that force of steel. Can you imagine? Now, they don't let the cat out of the bag. They don't tell us what the material is, what the properties are, but Michael Strands, professor of chemistry at MIT, he said it has very, very unusual properties, and we're very excited. And when the world finds out what we have, that world is never going to be the same again. It's like you and me. Goodness and mercy is going to follow me, and I'm going to dwell in the house of the Lord forever, all the days of my life. That word my life translates not just this life, but it also translates in the life to come. Ned, he was only 13 years old. He was 5'2" and he weighed 105 pounds. He was an only child with a single mom. They lived in the city of Philadelphia. They had escaped the war in Liberia over in Africa, and they moved to the United States. And they lived in a very poor area of the city of Philadelphia. It was known for its drug gangs. The rent was cheap. And it was cheap only because it was a very rough area. Coming home from school, Ned was attacked by one of the gangs. They ambushed him. They pushed. They shoved. They punched. They kicked. He bled. They dragged. And finally, they strung him up and suspended him on a high wrought iron fence, hanging with his winter jacket dangling 7 feet in the air. Well, Ned survived that attack. Left dangling on the fence, he remained there for the longest time. But the incident was filmed by one of the gang members, one of the bullies. And he went and posted it on YouTube, the internet. A passerby saw the violence, got out of his car, chased the assailants away, and took young Ned down off the fence. Police saw the violence on YouTube. They took action. The faces of the troublemakers were recognized, they were arrested, and prosecutions were handed out. The story reached the newspaper. A staff member of one of the nationwide television shows read the report, and they invited Ned to their show on a Saturday morning to appear on the broadcast. The video of the assault was played, and the horror of the event was viewed by thousands of viewers all over the States. Now, Ned didn't know it, but the producer of the show invited some of their guests to this program that Ned didn't know about, hidden behind the curtain where Ned was being interviewed. The moment came when the curtain was pulled open, and out walked 3 huge Goliaths, giants. And Ned looked at them, and they looked at him. And to see this little 13-year-old beside these Goliaths was quite comical. Because do you know who they were? They were members of the Philadelphia Eagles National Football League team. Now, little Ned, he liked football. He watched the Philadelphia games on television with his mother, never dreaming that one day he would be in the presence of one of those giant football players. One of the players sat to his right, the other 2 sat to his left. The one that sat to his right had in his hand a lovely sweater, and it was a National Football League Philadelphia Eagles sweater, lettered number 1, and above the letters was Ned's name. He had his own National Football League sweater given to him as a gift, autographed by these 3 football players sitting beside him. One of the players was All-Pro receiver Deshaun Jackson, 6'4", who sat next to Ned. He congratulated Ned for his courage. He told him how admirable he was for his determination. And then he did something unthinkable. He gave Ned a new cell phone with a personal telephone number to be used on speed dial. It was Jackson's private cell phone number. And when he presented it to Ned, he said, anytime you need me or you need us, all three of us will come running when you call. I have 2 linemen that keep an eye on me, and they let me through the line when it's my turn to run. And they'll do the same thing for you, Ned. We're going to cover your back. You have just found 3 new friends. And what happened to you out there on that playground will never happen again. Wouldn't you like to have that protection? Joshua, he heard those words in Joshua chapter 1, verse 5. God guaranteed them. He said to the Jews, no man shall be able to stand before you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I'll be with you, and I'll never leave you, nor will I forsake you. The writer of the Hebrews, he said the same thing, only in a different way, in chapter 13, verse 5 and 6. I will never leave you or forsake you. The Lord is my helper. I will not be afraid. What can anyone do to me? Here's a hint. God doesn't look over you when you're 13 years old. He looks over you all the days of your life. And you're going to dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Isn't it amazing? The Lord of glory would come to earth and follow me and watch over me, just like he did that little boy, 13 years of age, with some of the greatest force in the whole city of Philadelphia. Players from the Philadelphia Eagle NFL team. Well, the clock on the wall is gone. It's our time to leave. Can I give you a smile from the sunny side of the street? I think I told you before, I was a donor of blood. I gave blood all my life. And one of the things I didn't enjoy, I didn't mind the needle going in and taking out the blood. That wasn't the part that hurt. What did hurt was they would prick my finger and they would take a sample of the blood and they'd put it in a little vial, blue in color. And if that drop of blood sank to the bottom, that meant my hemoglobin count was fine and they could then receive my blood and give it to someone else. Well, those of you that are here in the audience and you have diabetes, you have to have that needle pricked in your hand all the time. One of my sons is a type 1 diabetic. He has his finger pricked 4 times a day because he takes a needle of insulin to overcome his diabetes. Here's my smile. Charlie, he had diabetes. He was in the hospital. Like me, he didn't like the nurse coming along and pricking his finger because it hurt. The nurse came into his room and said, Charlie, which one of your fingers do you want me to prick that doesn't hurt? Charlie stared at her and he didn't say anything. And then finally he blurted out, we're going to prick your finger instead. I know that won't hurt. See you next week, class. I'll be watching for you when you come home. Remember, surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I'm going to dwell in the house of the Lord forever.